You're listening to Spill the Sea with Ashwati Ramesh.
Hi, Krishnan.
Hello.
So nice to meet you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Of course, very glad to have you on. I know we're going to dive into a bunch of different things on a very important sector in climate, waste management. So, very excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Excited to share the Wastelink story.
Awesome. So before we jump in, I do want to give a quick shout out to Copper and Cloves, which is the plant-based cafe. They have let us take over their lovely studio space for this. So grateful for that.
Yeah, lovely venue. I think
Yeah, it is.
beautiful place for this conversation.
Okay, great. So, Krishnan, before we kind of get into the nitty gritties of this, would you like to give us a quick overview of what exactly Wastelink does?
Sure. Wastelink is what you would call a circular economy company. We bridge the loop between two industries. One that is generating some sort of waste, and for us, it is the food industry. And we convert that food waste into something useful and meaningful in a different application,
Yeah.
which in our case is the animal feed industry. So we're able to bridge what is kind of a byproduct or waste for one into a useful, attractive raw material in another. It's one of those businesses where it's common sense, it's the right thing to do, and is good for the planet. So yeah, it was
Amazing.
A very interesting and unique model that we have developed.
Right. And how did you, I mean, what's been your journey before founding Wastelink?
It's been quite a long journey before Wastelink. I I'm an engineer. You know, most of my career, I have like 3 degrees, bachelor's, master's, and a PhD in
Oh,
engineering.
wow.
But soon after, started my career with strategy consulting in McKinsey in the US. Amazing learning experiences there. Came back to India, continued to have my own boutique consulting practice.
Right.
My first startup gig was with a company called Nolarity, which is now part of a broader organization called Gupshup. Uh,
Okay.
Nolarity was a cloud telephony company making telephone solutions for businesses.
Yeah.
I used to be the chief operating officer there. So spent 3 years scaling that B2B SaaS business in India and outside. Phenomenal learning experiences of building a startup, a tech startup in India. Another amazing thing that happened was I met my co-founder Saket there.
Okay.
Saket had just finished his college at Thapar, and he joined us. We used to have a team called the Internal Strategy Group, so he
Right.
joined that team as an analyst, and we worked very closely together
Okay.
for those 3-4 years on various aspects of the business. And yeah, so that's kind of uh, you know um, kind of how we came together as well.
Yeah.
And when we both left Nolarity, actually Saket started Wastelink.
Right.
I was originally an investor in the company,
Okay.
and a few years down the line, when the business kind of model was set up, and we were quite convinced on the scale and potential of what we were looking to build. I could not sit on the sidelines any further as an investor, and I jumped in
Right.
as a co-founder.
That's an interesting twist where an
It
investor has
is
now become the co-founder.
indeed, and I think Saket, of course, is extremely passionate about climate, and was very clear. I think for a long time that he wanted to do something in this space.
Yeah.
I knew that even when we hired him at Nolarity. I think he had done some amazing stuff in college
Yeah.
around waste management, and had represented India at COP17 at Durban. So had kind of, I would say, like green blood was running through him.
Right.
But at that time, I think it was a little too early to set up something in climate. 2018, when we set it up, was also early, but I think
Yeah.
by that time, the conviction was stronger, and we felt that we could pull off something. So, yeah.
Right. Amazing. And how's this? I know you started off in consulting. How's that transition been? Even though you
Yeah.
are a second time founder.
Yeah, look, consulting, I think For me, it was natural and something I absolutely wanted to do. I think I enjoyed consulting. I enjoyed the problem solving and the impact we could create. But for me, that was never enough. I wanted to do more. I wanted to do something more operational and execution oriented, which is kind of what I did in between Nolarity and McKinsey. So I had my own boutique consulting practice
Yeah.
here in India and then eventually in the Middle East, where I used to take on these longer term engagements, like 9 months, 1 year, and so on, where you actually work inside of the client,
Yeah.
solving real problems, running pilots, running projects. So for me, I think execution and operations was kind of was something that I truly enjoy and something that excites me. So
Right.
yeah, so I did that at Nolarity, and then I got another opportunity, and I felt an even greater role and a greater responsibility in Wastelink. So
Right.
for me, it was a natural,
No
and
brainer.
yeah, and pretty much this is all what I want to do. That's it. I
Yeah.
think just scale Wastelink, I think, into a massive opportunity, massive business.
Right. And why climate and specifically waste management? How did you come
Yeah,
into this
so
industry?
so when we set up Wastelink, there are multiple things, or rather, we could have taken the business in so many different directions. Very early on, we actually envisioned the business to be a technology platform that would connect waste producers and potentially waste consumers and recyclers. Um, Very soon, we felt that uh, building a horizontal business like that would require a lot of capital, and there were a few others that were attempting that already or doing that already, and we didn't feel it was quite differentiated enough.
Right.
And then, so as we kind of evaluated the opportunities, a couple of segments, this is talking about 2018, right, looked quite virgin for us. One was the food and food waste, and the other was the apparel, textile industry, and
Right.
textile waste. It was a little bit just ground up problem solving. We felt what is the larger opportunity? What is it? Where is it that we can meaningfully build a circular economy solution, and so on. So both Saket and I felt that food waste seemed like the space to be extremely large opportunity, not going anywhere.
Yeah.
As long as there is a commercial food industry, which is forever, there is going to be food waste. And a meaningful, sustainable solution is necessary. So there was just a lot of macro pointers which gave us the conviction that we should build something around waste and more specifically food waste. So yeah, that got us around to then kind of further evolving a model that within food waste, right? And then I mean, kind of developed multiple things around it, which
Right.
to where we are now. So a solid partner to the consumer food industry.
Right. So, Krishnan, maybe for our listeners, could you give us an overview of how the waste management industry works in India?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you look at waste management, I'll speak to food waste
Sure.
because that's broadly the area we operate in. When we look at food waste, uh, broadly we segment it into two parts. One, which is the pre-consumer food waste, which is waste that is generated in the entire food production and distribution value chain, even before it gets into the household. Right? So that's the entire, you can say, commercial value chain where there is waste that is generated. And then there is post-consumer food waste.
Right.
Post-consumer food waste is food waste that is generated, let's say, your plate waste at restaurants, or at weddings and events, and even your own household things
Yeah.
that you would throw away from, half-eaten or from your refrigerator. Right? So that's kind of broadly how we look at the space of waste management. And post-consumer food waste is a much more difficult problem to solve. A lot of mixed food waste, right?
Yeah.
And in general, composting solutions have been developed, home composting solutions and so on, which are pretty effective and to solve some of these problems at scale. And there's also other biogas and other innovation that's been made,
Yeah.
which helps solve for some of the post-consumer food waste challenges. Um, Pre-consumer, on the other hand, also did not have any other option. They were relying on the same composting and biogas, which we felt is not the best outcome. There are higher order outcomes possible.
Right.
So that's when we kind of looked a little bit further into pre-consumer food waste and commercial food waste, and we have developed unique solutions to create innovative products from those waste categories. Pre-consumer food waste, you can kind of think of it as a multiple segments in that ecosystem. Um, Packaged food in retail is a common segment, which is pretty much all the branded foods you would eat. Biscuits, snacks, right? Noodles. I mean, or any packaged food product that you would order, right? Those companies that make them, the companies that package and label them. Then there's pre-processing of that, right? And all the way going up to the farm and sourcing. So
Yeah.
there is both processing and wastage that happens all along that value chain, both in factory and distribution. So those need adequate treatment, sustainable treatment, and so on. Farm and agri-age, I think it's widely written topic about wastage of fresh fruit and vegetables in India. Again, through the entire kind of farming to table, the distribution value chain, at the aggregation point, at the mandi level, at multiple warehouses where the fruit and veg changes hands, there is wastage.
Yeah.
And by volume is the largest. Right? And then there's the alcobev industry that generates a lot of byproducts, which again there are meaningful upcycling outcomes possible. So this industry is huge, and then of course with the organized food industry, right, with growth of cloud kitchens and stuff, there's numerous mini food producing facilities, right, that have been developed, who in turn generate food waste as well. So there are huge sources of food waste, and all of this way before the food even lands on your plate, right?
Yeah.
So that is all of them put together are pre-consumer food waste ecosystem, and which is where we have built our set of solutions to service that industry.
Got it. And how are things different in, say, a more developed markets? Are you seeing maybe food waste management being handled better or in a more structured,
Yeah.
efficient manner?
The reality is food waste volumes are massive, anywhere in any country you can think of. The proportion of pre and post consumer food waste varies a bit. In developed markets, the supply chains are better, the transport losses are probably not as bad as what you see here.
Yeah.
So the pre-consumer food waste may be slightly lower than post-consumer, where consumer habits, over-ordering, buying these 3 gallons of milk and leaving it in the refrigerator, right? Those kinds of behaviors probably result in a greater post-consumer food waste in developed
Yeah.
markets. In the Indian context, I think pre-consumer probably outstrips post-consumer. Consumers are generally very aware. We, in households, are not used to throwing away food. They try
Yeah.
to use as much as possible. If you don't eat it, give it to your maid. You do something, right? But you make sure that
Yeah.
someone eats what's there. And in the pre-consumer, of course, there are massive challenges with our value chain, the highway infrastructure, cold chain infrastructure. So yeah, I would say there's those nuances. But in the aggregate, when you look at the volume of food waste, it's massive.
Yeah.
You might be in the developed world or in our part of the world. It's huge volumes, huge volumes.
And what typically happens after consumption, right? How does this generated waste or even partially consumed waste, whatever is left, where does it go? What happens?
Yeah, unfortunately, in post-consumer food waste, I think is actually a big burden on the environment, because a lot of that food waste, through various channels, get aggregated and then end up in landfills.
Yeah.
And not only have you spent all the energy and probably emitted greenhouse gas and to produce that food and bring it to the plate, further when it goes back to the landfill, once again through its degenerating process, right, generates greenhouse gases. So it's quite a it's a killer in that sense. I think food waste. We should find every possible way to mitigate that and find uses. So in the post-consumer world, finding ways to compost it or put in a common composter, or or if there's anyone who collects eventually for use in biogas, I think you must do. I think so. It's an individual responsibility, individual accountability that one must take to do your part in leading a sustainable life,
Yeah.
and just leaving a lesser footprint on the planet. On the pre-consumer side, I think corporates can do a whole lot more, and I think the ones that we work with, I believe, have made that choice to do something different, to do something better. So yeah, we work with them. We actually guide the food companies we work with on storage methods,
Right.
how to store it, how to pack it, how to give it to us, so that we can maximize what they provide into, let's say, feed conversion. Because in general, feed conversion is a higher order outcome. You're able to create some sort of an ingredient which is like a nutrition premix. We don't make the final product, we only make a premix. So our premix is then used by feed manufacturers to make the final product. But ultimately, it serves a nutrition need for the animal, whatever the type of animal that it eventually goes into. So, you prevent these items from ending up in a landfill or an incinerator or whatever
Yeah.
that may be, that can further harm the environment. So, I think there are choices available today, there are options available today.
Yeah.
And corporates are, I think, increasingly exercising those choices as they become more aware and as they become more accessible, as these options or solutions become more accessible.
Right. And are you seeing this shift happen across corporates, or is it a small subset?
I think I think the momentum is just building. Would I say that everyone is aware and is doing the right thing? Answer is no. I think there's still work to be done. But I think that the shift has started. We work with a number of leading brands in India, so I think there are folks within those organizations who have recognized the need to do this, and have recognized the need to find sustainable solutions, not just the cheapest solution, but something that's both economical and sustainable.
Right.
So I think we see that shift, but absolutely, I think more needs to happen. Um, I think both medium and small businesses need to kind of understand their responsibility as well. I think large companies still have some sort of, either some sort of global commitments and
Yeah.
shareholder commitments and others, right? It still guide them to make the right choices.
Right.
I think small and medium businesses, I think the new age ones do already, just out of their own volition. Several new age food companies we work with, outstanding. I think they're they're born to provide better nutrition for
Yeah.
their customer segments, and as part of that, they take sustainability very seriously. So many new age food brands work with us,
Right.
and I think but food in India is not just a large enterprise business. There's like
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of small and medium-sized food producers spread across the country.
Yeah.
Every region has its own local biscuit manufacturer, chips manufacturer, cake manufacturer, bread
Yeah.
manufacturer. I think that movement needs to kick in. I think they need to take their accountability to the environment seriously.
Right.
Accountability towards ensuring that expired food doesn't flood the market. That's a massive problem as well. I think one of the things that we end up solving is ensuring that expired food and spoiled food is never resold to humans, right?
Right.
So I think, yeah, I think we absolutely need more companies do more in this space.
Right. Maybe now switching to the other side of your business, which is the feed industry, right? Could you give us maybe an overview of how that works? Where are the manufacturers currently sourcing from?
Yeah. So, feed manufacturing is a very traditional industry, and uh, you know they have always been using a basket of ingredients, commodities, you can say, which have been kind of which go into the making of the feed product, be it for cattle, poultry, aqua, doesn't matter. So these commodities, I think, and and these commodities have their own challenges because of course with weather, the quantity, the quality changes,
Yeah.
price fluctuations happen, right? And in general, there is not sufficient compound feed that is being produced to feed all the livestock in the country. So there's, you could say, a shortage of raw material as well. And sorry, I
Right.
just said the word compound feed. Compound feed is basically the ingredient or the product into which commodities and our ingredients go into.
Right.
It is the part of the nutrition plan for an animal, which ensures the right health outcomes, be it quantity of milk or fat content in milk or a weight gain in an animal or whatever it might be. I think
Right.
so. Compound feed is a critical component in their feeding plans, and which is what we feed into.
Right.
So, what we felt was that on the demand side, I think the problem that we set out to solve was to make a large volume ingredient, which this industry can use to effectively replace some of the commodities, or rather, as they grow, kind of supplement their commodities with our product, and which is what it does, I think.
Right.
When they incorporate our product, which is like a eco feed, eco mix ingredients, they end up replacing a subset of their ingredients to a certain proportion, right? I think our inclusion value goes up to about 30%. You can't all just completely replace commodities.
Sure.
You will always need them, but an ingredient like ours can contribute up to 30% of their volume. And
Right.
so they use this to enhance the nutrition, be it energy, fat, or whatever is a problem statement that they are looking to solve, and they create a new formulation, which has been shown to give better yield outcomes. We've done some work with a veterinary university.
Right.
They have done their research, and the report is soon to be public, where
Okay.
they've demonstrated that a feed made with our ingredients in a certain proportion helps drive better animal yield.
All right. That's incredible.
Yeah, so it's a very, and for the feed industry, it's a very simple business value proposition. I think uh, they are, I would say the climate conscious is there, I think, but that's yet to kick in. I think today the choices in that industry are largely driven by what's good for the livestock, and am I able to get that at a similar price point or better than what I
Right.
do? Yeah.
Understood. So, Krishnan, can you maybe walk us through about the actual process of transferring surplus food waste into
Sure.
feed?
Yeah, I think so. This is what we call a conversion process, and this is the aspect of the business that we've innovated significantly to make this happen. Food waste has been around for the longest time. Feed has been around for the longest time as well. Uh, but in order to build a business here, we had to innovate on how do we harness this large amount of food waste with insane variety, right? Talking about like thousands and thousands of SKUs
Yeah.
of food, and how do you bring that down to a product that the feed industry can use? So we do what's called homogenization, which is we literally work with every food product that we get, and we have come up with a proprietary way in which we make a handful of standard output products with certain defined nutrition profile,
Yeah.
which we know the industry needs, and of course have in-depth industry expertise. We have scientists who have worked in the veterinary space, and who are deeply aware of animal health and animal nutrition needs. So they help us design these products. So there is a fairly robust science-led conversion process that we have created. The process itself has a bunch of other elements to it. One has to be able to properly segregate and identify a product, the input raw material that we get. So we have developed some methods to do that at scale at each of our facilities that we operate. And then we have a kind of a multi-stage production process where we depack them. When I say depack, you have to remove the food from its original packaging. So you can get to
Right.
the food and then make the feed ingredient out of it. And then there's a whole bunch of specific steps around working with these various food products to make that final premix. So it's a typical manufacturing facility or a production facility. We have 4 of those across India.
Are these your own?
Yes,
Okay.
we lease the land.
Okay.
Of course, we lease the facility, but we equip it and we
Right.
run it. I think, and at least in the near term, until we reach a certain scale and in the business, I think we'll be doing it ourselves. And yeah, so uh, pretty much everything we collect across the country ends up at one of these 4 facilities,
Right.
where it goes through this process of segregation, production, and finally we create a finished product, which is then bagged and shipped off to our customers. And this really is the key. Like I said, I think how do I take something from a wide variety of input ingredients, from flours to breads to maybe even cookies or whatever they may be.
Yeah.
How do you work with this variety, and how do you finally make a product with a very clear nutrition profile that the feed industry needs, right? So I think, yeah, that's kind of, you can say, the secret sauce.
Right. So you did mention a variety of waste that does come your way. What do you collect typically? What is happening on the sourcing side for you guys?
So what we collect from the food companies, essentially there are 2 major sources. One is the factory, which is where the food is still in its original form or the raw material form. So there is various types of waste: pre-production, during, and post-production. In packaged food industry, there's a lot of waste which is specification issues. Sometimes something gets overcooked, undercooked, a whole range of reasons why they get rejected. So we get those, and then we get waste through the entire supply chain. I mean, we are a large country. People in every town and district of India have the same aspirations to consume the same types of food or the quality of food that one might have in the metros.
Yeah.
Which means, if you're a national food company, you have built a supply chain that will take the food from, let's say, a handful of factories across India to each and every town and district, right? So along the way, then there's damages during transit. There are then there is things that reach a near expiry even before they can reach the shelves many sometimes. So there was all of the various contributors, and then there's of course near expiry and expired food. So there's all
Yeah.
these contributors of food waste in the distribution ecosystem of India. So we gather all of those, and so yeah, and so if you look at the food waste that comes into a factory, some are in loose condition, but a vast majority comes with packaging. So you then have to remove the food from packaging. So we have developed customized machinery which can do that, right?
Right.
All along, there have been companies that built machines to pack stuff, and for the first time, we had to come up with machines that will unpack stuff.
Yeah.
So we had to do a little bit of customization and come up with some unique tweaks to existing machinery. So we did all of that. Still a lot of room for mechanization, but yeah, I think there's a wide variety of items that come in, and yeah, uh, uh, yeah, it's a pretty interesting space. I mean, I'm just thinking of the factories we run, very large facilities.
Where are these located, and which markets are you? Which regions are you in currently?
Yeah, so we actually located it so we can serve all of India. So we have one outside Delhi,
Okay.
one near Mumbai, one in Bengaluru, and one in Lucknow.
Okay.
So in essence, we're able to service national brands. We are able to collect, in the regions of these cities, and we land the material at one of these 4 factories.
Right.
As we grow, I expect we will have more factories. I think it's just a matter of scale and unit economics. So I think we will add more facilities
Yeah.
over time to cater to the demand. But at this time, I think we have these 4 facilities with which we work all over India. We visit every state in India,
Right.
and we pretty much, I think for one or more brands, and we collect this food waste.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we hope to as well have local processing facilities. Ideally, that's the right answer to do as well.
Yeah.
Have ensure that these food waste don't have to travel long distances. So it is in our plan to add more processing facilities as and when the scale allows it.
So I guess the regions you mentioned are pretty much in different parts
Correct.
of the country. How are you managing logistics for this?
So yeah, I mean, this was one of the unique challenges that we had to solve for. We have a pretty incredible forward logistics ecosystem in India, thanks to the internet and e-commerce boom.
Yeah.
There's a fledgling reverse logistics space. The reverse logistics space largely caters again to e-commerce, so
Yeah.
small packages and small package handling.
Yeah.
So to that extent, we had to kind of create our own reverse logistics ecosystem because we are moving large volumes of material back from warehouses and distributors. So yeah, we worked with a subset of logistics providers,
Right.
got them, incentivize them to help us with the entire reverse logistics. We don't own a fleet, or we don't intend to own a fleet either. So we work with these transport providers who across India, several of them now, who go visit like nearly like between 1,000 1,500 locations each month,
Right.
collecting material and dropping it at four of our units. So
Right.
yeah, it's a look, solving for India. Needs scale.
Yeah.
You need to be able to ready to solve these problems. I think. So yeah, I think we realized very early on that whatever we build, we want to build it for all of India. We want to build it so large food companies can find meaningful solutions to their food waste problem. So when we work with them, we said, look, we'll work with you in metros, but we'll also work with you in every town and district that you operate in. So we
Yeah.
literally map the footprint of food companies. So yeah.
That's fantastic. Are you also using, say, a software layer to kind of optimize your processes? If you could share some
Yeah,
light
so
on that.
technology for us is I think it's a very, in many ways, a traditional sounding industry, but today, of course, technology is everywhere. I think you cannot get by without it. So in our, we have a supplier app, so our food companies get full traceability and transparency to the material that they give us.
Right.
They know how much is getting picked, how many bags, what
Right.
items, what weight, and also we give them status of that material and its processing. So we have that, and of course internally we use a lot of these new age routing AI tools available because like I said, we visit 1,500 plus locations. So
Yeah.
a lot of optimization is needed of transport costs, logistics costs, distance traveled, and so on. So we do a lot of that. But in the production side and in the units, it's largely science. There's
Right.
we are constantly innovating on nutrition science, how to create more effective products, also how to expand the market. I think we have a certain set of use case applications today, but we would love to export this ingredient, for instance, right?
Right.
Or we would open up new additional demand segments. So I think on the conversion side, a lot of the investment is towards like science and technology. Yeah, I think there's uh, it's, it's still in the early stages, I would say. So more fundamental innovation is needed
Right.
before
Right.
technology can disrupt it.
Understood. So, Krishnan, you mentioned, I understand that your primary customer segments are on the supply side, you have your food producers, and on the demand side, you have your feed manufacturers. Um, can you break this down further? Maybe industries, sub industries, what kind of food producers, large, small?
Yeah, so we kind of track the industry pretty like in its composition, meaning we work with both large, medium, and small players. Like I said, large players generally I think are quite eager to find solutions like ours. They want professional players who offer them that traceability and compliance, right? I think, so they can rest easy that they know that the material is not ending up in the black market, is not getting repackaged.
Yeah.
That's a huge concern today. I think, like just last week, there were new guidelines that were published by FSSAI to
Right.
prevent misuse of food waste. There's a whole host of informal traders uh, who, in the guise of cattle feed, will take food waste, they will unpack it, and then go repack and sell it again. So I think there are not enough professional verifiable players out there. So we work with them. So for large companies, it's a very it's a no-brainer, I would say, to work with somebody like us. And then there's the medium and small scale companies that we end up working with. But that's and in terms of the types of companies that we work with, I think it's really the entire gamut you can think of, right? Breads, pulses or grains, yeah, various types of packaged foods, or your pancake mixes. To I mean, I don't know, you can you name it. We work with it. Um, so yeah, I think there is really other than liquids, of course, the liquids in general are a little bit harder.
Right.
Animal feed is typically it's in solid state, and our ability to absorb liquid in that is very minimal. But outside of that, we're able to work with pretty much every type of food manufacturer. There are a few exceptions, the very spicy ones, and foods that don't won't ultimately enhance the nutritional value of that feed ingredient, right? I think those generally don't find a place,
Right.
but the vast majority of foods that you and I would eat, I think find a place there. On the feed side, I think again, while the industry itself is quite large, and there's both large and small players, and there are players in, who are of course multi-segment, but then there are cattle experts and poultry experts and aqua experts. Our ingredient is a bit agnostic
Okay.
to the use case, because ultimately it's a nutrition mix,
Right.
certain energy profile, certain fat profile, carb profile, and so on, and it's a premix. So ultimately, it's the end user who could take our product, and in their final formulation, they could make a cattle feed out of it, or they could make a poultry feed out of it. So
Understood.
we are, at least today, in some of the products we make, segment agnostic.
Okay.
Uh, and we did that largely again to be able to service a fairly large industry. Um, and each of these are extremely large opportunity segments with millions of tons of feed being sold to
Right.
cattle, poultry, and aqua. So, yeah, we decided to make a neutral product, if you may, which will cater to these segments. So, yeah, I would say, in essence, I think uh, we are built to solve for the larger problems in
Right.
both food and feed.
Understood. And what may have been some of the challenging points of conflict or convincing when you actually have to onboard a customer on either
Yeah.
side?
So, yeah, I think there, we've had a fair share of challenges and pain points, if you may, in our journey to scaling. In the food side, it's a mix. I think there's a set of the food industry that has been working with the informal traders for a long time, and so they're used to certain value realizations. I mean, waste to value is an important theme. It's an important theme for us as well. I think
Yeah.
there is a subset of our suppliers to whom we offer waste to value. We purchase the
Right.
product, though there are several others whom they actually pay us for sustainable handling, or we pick it up for free. It all depends on the product profile and volumes and so on. But the segment where we offer them value, I think they're used to realizing a certain amount, let's say, from the trader. Almost always we offer less than that trader, and again, but what we offer them is the guarantee, the commitments, the traceability, the information at their fingertips. We have facilities that are verifiable, auditable, right? I think so. A whole lot of things that we offer, which an unorganized player or one earlier could not. And it is those a part of those players who are also engaged in activities that are that are unethical or illegal, where, by repurposing some of that food waste for human consumption. So I think it takes some level of convincing and internal support building in some of these food companies when they have to make a switch from one of those practices to Wastelink.
Yeah.
But then there are others where it was a much easier switch because they were aware of the pitfalls of the informal ecosystem,
Yeah.
and therefore they were doing something which was a little bit more expensive or and so on, which might have been like sending it to an incinerator
Right.
or sending it to landfills. So for them, when they see a solution like ours, it was a bit of a no-brainer
Right.
to work with us, and because we end up going to their distributors and collecting it, so we take the logistics headache out of them,
Right.
and we offer a superior sustainable solution. So I think it's been a mix, and I think today where we are, I think we have a very, very clear value proposition. We have a lot of tech-enabled traceability that we have put in. So I think it's a little less of a challenge, but some of these were there early on.
Right.
On the feed side too, I think it's a different set of challenges. There, it's one of getting that industry exposed to an ingredient like this. Right? I think in the Western world, feed made out of former food stuff is widespread and common, but in India it wasn't so much. I think the penetration levels of former food stuff in feed was very, very low or negligible.
Right.
So it took a while to build trust in that ecosystem. It's also a very low trust environment. I think they, if you give them a formulated product like what we do, they're not sure what went into it. They suspect that you might have adulterated with something which is
Right.
not good. So it took some time to build a brand and build that credibility and build that trust with our feed manufacturers.
Yeah.
They do trials and field trials and a bunch of other things. And over time, we have built that name. Now we have a name in that industry. We have a certain reputation in that industry.
Right.
But it's still in the making. But
Yeah.
I would say, I think we have a reasonable name in that industry now, and we've been able to create this quality ingredient at a competitive price. But yeah, so there, for us as we scale, it's just knocking on doors of these feed companies,
Right.
introducing them to this product, convincing them on its nutritious value,
Yeah.
and then allowing them to go through their decision making process. But in general, like the way the business has scaled, I mean, these are just steps more than roadblocks at this time. It's just,
Yeah.
we go through it and then we convert. So work with some of the largest feed manufacturers, very well renowned global feed manufacturers. So yeah, I think we have the validation, if you may, for the product is already there.
Right.
So I think, but these are some of the challenges we went through to get to where we are today.
Right. No, that's great to know. I think we also first met maybe 2-3 years ago. So great to hear,
Correct.
where you come from there. Incredible journey so far.
Correct. And those are very early days. I think pre-scale up. I mean, it's been a very interesting journey. I think we've scaled significantly in these last 2 to 3 years, and we've got incredible support as well. From uh, uh, investors, but also Marico Innovation Foundation, who I want to give a shout out to. It's an incredible organization. They have a scale-up program, which we are part of,
Yeah.
and have opened up incredible number of doors to several folks, be it in the feed industry, be it in kind of manufacturing. They have helped us in several aspects of our business, and have have made a huge impact and offered support as we scaled up. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
we still have a long way to go, but I think but we feel like the foundation is strong.
Mm-hmm.
We've built a model that's valid, that's proven,
Yeah.
and now needs to grow. So
Amazing. And what would be the economics of it for a food producer uh, from their current practices
yeah.
to switching to Wastelink?
So one of the things that drove uh, uh, us when as we set up Wastelink was, while we wanted to build a sustainable business, we wanted to make sure that there was something in it for the food producer. I think from an economic standpoint, try to make it as simplistic and cost efficient as possible. So, I think that led to us running the reverse logistics. So,
Yeah.
we go to where the material or the waste is getting originated so that they don't have to do the coordination and so on. And there's a few interesting pieces we are also developing at this time to help the business, with its audit and disposal. So there's some of those that are presently getting built out in our tech platform. But the whole idea is to be as helpful as you can be, because ultimately this is not a core business for them. Their job is to get food into the hands of distributors and customers, right?
Yeah.
Not collect and segregate and process, right? That is, and so that entire aspect of it we take over. So when we do that, clearly then we said, okay, how can we provide the best possible economic outcome? A part of how we do that is by creating this feed ingredient which fetches revenue for us, right? So,
Yeah.
so part of the costs of the operations get offset by the revenue that we generate from the feed manufacturers. Now, depending on the type of product and the volume and the cost of aggregation and so on, a subset of the food companies we work with actually realize waste to value from us. We are able
Right.
to offer them a certain amount of money for the material that we collect from them. But that's not always the case. I think
Sure.
a vast number of them either give the material to us for free, so meaning we just collect it and there's no zero cost.
Right.
And there are also those who have to pay, and it's largely because again of their product mix is such that. And its value in feed or the cost of operations, or sometimes the cost of even depacking. I think while a lot of thought has gone through creating all the innovative packaging,
Yeah.
when it comes to retrieving the food from that packaging, it's a whole different problem statement for us. So,
Yeah.
so we evaluate any food company and its mix, at the time of onboarding to set the model actually. So, but whatever we do, even in the case we charge, I believe that we charge lesser than what they would have paid otherwise. Because in
Right.
the previous ecosystem, they had to handle the logistics. Your warehouse and your facilities are blocked with all of this material. You have people overseeing this material, handling the material, and then you have people who are ensuring that it's getting disposed properly, and then you, of course, incur cost of moving it to those disposal sites, and then you have to pay the disposal site. So the cost add up very quickly if you're a food manufacturer. So we have been able to come in and at least eliminate a lot of those, free up space. Certain brands, their warehouse capacity, is freed up by about 20-25% because
Right.
because this entire activity is moved out of their warehouse. So I think it's a pretty clear economic value proposition. And that has kind of driven the way we develop the model. From day one, we've ensured that the model does not place an additional burden, both operationally and economically to
Right.
these companies. And I think so far it's played out that way. Like I said, the only place where somebody might feel like, oh, we are not, there's a bit of an economic hit is, I say, when you work with these unorganized vendors where you really didn't know where it ended. I mean, there are a
Yeah.
few who might have been doing, regular ethical work, but the vast majority of them,
You don't really know
yeah,
what
you don't know what's happening to it. Some of the prices they offer for some of the products are just impossible to meet in animal nutrition. But sometimes, yeah, if you are a P&L manager somewhere and you're used to receiving that money,
Yeah.
you don't want to see that go away. So yeah, I think those are some exceptions. But yeah, but in general, pretty much I would say every food company we work with is both is economically better off and sustainably is unquestionable. I think that is really the reason, and also compliance. I mean, that you don't have to worry about any non-compliance when it comes to
Yeah.
handling these materials. And there's been some new data regulations and stuff that have come in. So,
Yeah.
something like ours just fits in so well into that because
Right.
our
Right.
app and tool gives you the data that you need. You simply
Yeah.
download it and send it to whoever you need to send it to as part of your compliance. So I think very, very, very clear proposition.
Right.
On the feed side, it's a bit more like I said, it's a very simple economic decision.
Yeah.
So they buy a product as long as it meets their formulation cost requirements.
Yeah.
Every feed company has a certain budget for a formulation cost, and that formulation cost is the weighted average cost of all their ingredients put together. So as long as we remain competitive
Yeah.
for the nutritional value we provide, we are in the game.
Right.
And I think that's what we do. So we've created a product that they need, and we have priced it so they will adopt it, right? So in essence, that kind of defined the whole model because we know what legitimate use of these food waste in feed will fetch, right? So that kind of sets the you can say the revenues,
Yeah.
and then pretty much everything else after that then is defined by that. So,
Right.
but it's a solid model, and
Yeah.
it's there's a little bit of investment needed for these conversion facilities. Not a whole lot, but yes, some investment is needed
Yeah.
to spec out the conversion facilities. But once you do that, it's a pretty good scale up.
Got it. And actually, you did bring up regulations. I'm glad you brought that up because that's my next question for you. Um, I mean, like you mentioned before, it is a largely informal space right now. And what do you think are some of the gaps that need to be addressed to, make this transition quicker?
Yeah. Look, I think uh, beauty in a country like India is rules are there. Rules have always been there. I think we're a pretty robust legislative and regulation ecosystem. On the food side as well, there are very strict rules around mm, you know uh, f- expired foods not being sold and so on, right? I think it's more the compliance and sometimes you can say the oversight, right? Compliance by companies themselves, and to some extent maybe the oversight powers that need to be provided.
Yeah.
So we have seen some change recently. I think it's and in the right direction, which has been fantastic for players like us. So government has reinforced some of the rules that already exist, right? And if fueled by some of these viral videos, there's so many viral videos. There's one of someone selling noodles on a cart, or someone selling some branded cookies, with clear expiry dates and so on. Right?
Yeah.
So some of those have fueled the legislative action a bit more in the right direction. So I think on the food side, we don't really need more regulation, but in implementation of those, and typically in India, I think it's the small and medium businesses that have kind of skirted the regulations
Right.
in some sense, or at least they've been able to. So I think some compliance and stricter adherence
Right.
in those or two regulations, I think will automatically help for the right thing to happen, right? And so yeah, I feel on the food side regulations, even similarly on the feed side, I think there's pretty strict regulations around what nutrition must be provided in a feed to the end farmers, because I think farmers being the lifeline of the country, I think there are clear rules around what must be in a feed, type 1 feed, type 2 feed, and so on. And essentially then the feed manufacturers comply to those, and because we are a supplier to the feed manufacturer, they pass on those requirements in some shape or form to us, so which we then comply with as well. So I think it's a very clean I think framework within which we operate in. Yeah, so far we feel like I think it's there. But we'll see. I think as the industry evolves and as players like us evolve, I mean,
Yeah.
there's no real recognition of upcyclers and recyclers as an industry.
Yeah.
But hopefully, that too will change. I think more wastelands come into being, and I think
Yeah.
then there probably will be some relevant requirements that we put in place. So we'll see. I think as we move along.
Right. And are there any developed regions that are doing a great job of this where, we could sort of stack ourselves up against?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in general, waste management is there's a lot of opportunity in wherever in the world you are. But certain countries have definitely been a bit more proactive dealing with food waste. Uh, U.S., Western Europe, South Korea, Japan, Australia, they all have fairly stringent rules around how food waste is handled, and therefore there's a vibrant food to feed conversion ecosystem already. So what we do is new to India, but is not new to the world. So
Yeah.
there are very large food waste management companies, in different parts of the world. So yeah, I think we do hope that kind of institutional food waste management practices improve, corporate or food companies adopt solutions like ours in a bigger way, so that a greater proportion of that food waste can go through the food to feed conversion process where feasible. So yeah, I think overall, I would say we are a few years behind, but not a whole lot behind, and every country is still innovating on how do I expand the scope of food waste that I can upcycle. How do I limit what ends up in a landfill or an incineration. So I think these are problems which are quite universal, and I think uh, and given the vibrant startup ecosystem in India, and the number of startups that are trying to solve the waste problem in one way or the other, I'm hopeful that we'll be up there in terms of solving these problems at scale
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
meaningful manner.
Right. No, that's absolutely incredible, and good luck to you and the team
Thank you.
for the future. What is in store for you guys within the next few years?
Look, there's a lot. I think we are very very early.
Yeah.
We're a small business ourselves, and I think we're quite a long way to go. I would say to scale the business, and make a more meaningful impact on the environment for the country. But as we scale, I think I mean, obvious thing on the food side is work with pretty much the top 100 companies of India, and manage their food waste effectively. But I think on the demand side, there's some innovation that will happen. I think
Sure.
while today the only output product for us is animal feed ingredients, I think several things can happen. I think we can, of course, export these ingredients to feed manufacturers globally. We can get into other segments, like biofuels or food
Yeah.
waste fuels, right?
Yeah.
So that's a segment that I expect we will be in at some point in time. And there are a few other very interesting niche segments available. The entire cosmetic industry uses a lot of natural products,
Yeah.
fruit waste especially. So
Right.
fruit and fruit waste can be repurposed for that industry. So I think I see ourselves getting into a multiple of these segments, but over time, I think we are
Sure.
very very clear about uh, you know, focusing on one segment, building depth, building scale, and then kind of layering on other avenues. But yeah, I think uh, 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, I expect us to be in several of these segments, and hopefully be a significantly large enough player that's making a meaningful climate impact for India. Right? I think that's very much possible. I think we have built a vehicle that can do that. So it's now a matter of just getting it done.
Time and
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
No,
thank
good
you.
luck to you guys. Awesome. So this was a lot of information, a lot of great information. And I just have one last question for you.
Sure.
So Krishnan, how do you manage? I actually like this asking this question to founders. How do you manage the chaos and how do you make time for things that you love
Well, look, I mean,
outside of work?
yeah, look, founders' life by design is chaotic. I think Saket and we talk about this a lot. I think it just is something that, and a business like ours, there's so many different dimensions to it.
Yeah.
I think it is chaotic by design. But I think so. Try to take time off. I think there's. I have a 11-year-old son, so he has his interests of travel and so on. So we do travel quite a bit. We actually hike. I think so. All
Okay,
of us,
fun.
me, wife and son, we all enjoy hiking. So took a 5-day trip outside Manali, a hiking trip outside Manali over the Sierra. So we try to do something exciting and active as a family. And for 5 days, no network, no cell connectivity. I
Yeah.
think
That's
the
a
longest I've been away from my phone. I think my son looked at me and said, "What species is this? I've never seen this before." But yeah, I think it's but I think one needs to do it. I think we'll be able to do more of it. I think early years of building a startup,
sure.
you don't have an option. I think
Yeah.
you have to put in the time. You have to do what is needed.
Yeah.
Some of the things do take a back seat. I know there are others who find balance, and kudos to them, right? I think I would say this is the only way to build it.
I don't think any founder has said that,
Yeah,
but
but if they are, I think great. But I think but for us it was a pretty intense journey. But I think we are kind of in the cusp of turning a corner there.
yeah.
Um, you know, business is kind of at a point where it's going to achieve profitability, decent scale, all of
Yeah.
that. So I think we're kind of maturing into a different stage of growth at this point. So I think this balance is possible.
Yeah.
Spend more quality time with friends and families. Yeah.
Right. No, this was amazing. Krishnan, thank you so much. I think such a challenging industry to pick and provide solutions for. So thank you for providing your nuanced perspective on this. Uh, really enjoyed this conversations. I'm sure the listeners will also take away a lot from this. And thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.